Hello, everybody. Welcome to Ed America. With me, Hasna, one of the guys here in Ed America. For those of you who are new here and have no idea what Ed America is, Ed America is the U.S. Embassy's American Center, and our mission is to provide a space for young Indonesians to learn about the United States. And yes, we are currently open for visitors every day, so come visit us at America Jakarta to explore our events, experience our facilities, and express yourselves. In this episode, we will be having the GED test preparation, reasoning through language art series, week 5, reading fiction text. But before we begin, we have a little trivia for you, and the trivia for today is: did you know that the GED program has the largest alumni group in the world with more than 20 million graduates since its inception in 1942? All right, that was the trivia for today. We will also love to hear some other trivias from you regarding our events today, so feel free to submit it through our social media platforms. And now, without further ado, allow me to invite the GED qualified instructor, Zakaria. The floor is yours.
Yep, thank you. Thank you so much. Hello and welcome everyone to another session of GED prep class. And this is reasoning through language arts, or as we all know, English, just a fancy way of saying English. Anyway, I have shared my screen. I hope you can see it. And if you can't, please let me know. I know this is a really repetitive question, but anyway. So this is session 8. In the last 7 sessions, we have talked about nonfiction texts, how to read them, how to analyze them, what we are expected to do during the test. And this is the first session that we are going to focus on fiction texts. And this is very interesting. And from now on, you are going to, I assume, you are going to enjoy these sessions even more, because it doesn't really matter whether you have the intention of read. From now on, if you pay close attention to today's session, I'm sure you are going to enjoy reading books even more from now on. Okay. As you remember, in the last 7 sessions, we talked about all these things that you can see on the screen, from overview of reading comprehension to what you need to do during the test, and strategies, and understanding the main idea of text, and also about understanding the text structure, what kind of structure is used in the text that you read, point of view, facts versus opinions, or facts and opinions. I'm sure you know about all of them. In the last session, however, which was the last session of analyzing nonfiction texts, we talked about reading 2 related texts, meaning that there are 2 texts related either through their topic or maybe their main idea. They have not completely similar main ideas. Maybe their main ideas are in some way related to one another, and we said that text can be related either through a topic, theme. Theme basically is what the text is trying to tell you, and mostly indirectly. And we said that there are going to be graphics, bars, pie charts, donut charts. That one is really interesting. Also, we said that you are going to see maybe like bar graphs, and they'll have statistics that you'll have to figure out which one has more of what. And we talked about analyzing 2 opposing arguments, meaning that there are 2 arguments taking opposite sides on one topic. And we also went through almost everything that we have studied so far. So I think last session, if you watch the video of last session, I think you'll have a good understanding of what we have studied so far. Anyway, let's go to today's session. In today's session, because it's nonfiction, it's fiction. We are going to talk about genres and nonfiction, of course. It falls under one of the main genres, but because it's nonfiction and because nonfiction is really easy, kind of to read and understand, they are really straightforward. And we are going to speak about theme. In the last session, or maybe it was session 6. In session 6, I told you that if you don't understand theme, it's fine. We are going to talk about it even more during reading and analyzing fiction texts. And today's the day. We are going to talk more about inference, meaning that how to understand what the text is saying without the text explicitly stating it. You have to be able to read between the lines, make logical conclusions based on the evidence provided in the text, and also reasoning. We are going to see some examples of that. And something that's not here, we are going to, maybe if we have time, we are going to explore Notion. And you will see what I have added on Notion so far and what you can expect to be added in the future. Anyway, let's continue. So we have talked about this part. So genres and subgenres, the main genre here is nonfiction. Nonfiction meaning that based on facts. As you can see here on the screen, factual writing. It has statistics, it has evidence, it's based on truth. Facts, or at least the text claims them to be facts. We have talked about this. I'm not going to explain this again. We have talked about informational writing, meaning that the intention of the text is to inform you, instruct you, kind of add something to your knowledge, add something factual, of course. We have talked about also persuasive writing, which is also one of the subgenres of nonfiction genre. We said that, okay, when writers want you to stop thinking in a certain way, or when a writer wants to kind of persuade you, make you believe in a certain way, make you change your certain belief, or kind of challenge your belief, making claims and providing evidence against what you believe in. Try to persuade you, sometimes dissuade you. And the other two sections, the other two subgenres, we have not talked about them so far. Autobiography, again, it's really easy. Autobiography is when someone, or when one writes about oneself's life. Let's say if you write an autobiography, it means that you are going to write about your own life. Autobiographies are written by the person on whom the biography is based on. So biography is different. Autobiography written by, if I may, written by oneself by oneself, maybe. Why is this not working properly? By one's life. Meaning that if the person's name is John, if John decides to write about his own life and know where he was born, where he grew up, and know what he's done so far and what he's been through so far and what he has accomplished so far, that's going to be an autobiography. Biography is written by someone else. You hire someone to write a biography, they ask you questions and you answer them. And then maybe they go around with you, interview different people and people you've been in contact with from the beginning of your life, and that's going to be biography. This one is really to understand. Now, fiction. So the fiction section of the fiction genre is a bit more complicated because you have imaginative writing. The writings that you see in this genre are based on the author's imagination. There are stories, that kind of stories made up from someone's imagination, the author's imagination, and we have four subgenres for the main genre here. So the main genre is fiction, and the subgenre here is realistic fiction. Realistic fiction is really easy. They are made up stories that could be true, but they are not. If I could write this, maybe I should write it like this. Okay, okay. Maybe I have to way to write properly. So could be true, or can be true, or could be true, but are not, so aren't, are not. And then you have scientific science fiction. They are based on scientific improvements, scientific developments. You might see, some science fictions where they talk about really futuristic technologies, and they kind of use their imagination to write what's going to be, what the improvements or the technological improvements or the scientific improvements are going to look like in, let's say, 50 years. You might see a movie, or you definitely, I'm sure you have seen movies, where they talk about, where they kind of write about future, and they show you what future would look like with all the technological and scientific improvements. Anyway, science fiction is based on imaginative or imaginary scientific, based on scientific improvements, based on futuristic, made up, by the way, made up. They are not true yet. So there is maybe someone will tell you that what is, let's say you read a book and it's based, it takes place in 2050. And in the book you read that people can live longer, their phones are actually connected to their brain, and cars can fly. Those things, they are considered science fiction, but there is no proof that those improvements are going to take place. So they are based on futuristic, scientific, or technological. Wow. Okay. I have to adjust this so it doesn't. This is my computer. I have to adjust this in a way so I can write really properly without it moving a lot. So, based on uh, futuristic, scientific, or technological improvements or developments, maybe. Improvements, fine. Okay, so and then you have historical fiction. Historical fictions are based, on someone's imagination. Let's say you read a book that takes place in the 15th century. The book, is based at a historical time, but it's not true. So everything is made up. So you might have seen movies, and you might have read books where the author talks about a history that did not exist. So historical, yet made up. Meaning this is, of course. Okay, and the last one is fantasy. Fantasy is really interesting because fantasy is one of the subgenres that you might see in other main genres that we'll talk about. Fantasy, it has magic, it has science fiction, it has some realistic fiction, and you might see some historical as well. So it's basically fantasy. It has some impossible, possible stories that can't be true. Anyway, so fantasy like magic. You have magic. You have maybe it's like really basically fantasy. I'm sure you get the gist. So an example of this would be, you read something that is, that has zombies. Zombies fantasy, right? So you do not have zombies in the real world, and it's not science fiction because it's not an improvement. So it could be maybe science fiction is somewhere some scientific experiment goes wrong, and then you have science fiction on that. But then fantasy is like you have a world where zombies live, and there is magic, like Doctor Strange movie, which is going to come out soon. So and then you have drama. Drama, they are meant to be played on a stage or theater. You have the movies, and then there is comedy drama. Comedy drama is interesting and it's good because it has happy ending, and then you have tragedy, tragic writing. This tragedy subgenre has a sad ending, and usually the main character, the protagonist, dies. And then you have poetry. Poetry is concerned with the beauty of language. It doesn't really care whether it's sometimes, some poems are based on realistic situations, and some poems are written based on someone's personal experience, someone's life. But the intention of this genre is to use beautiful language to express emotions, either realistic or unrealistic, made up. And I'm sure you have read a lot of poems, you understand this. You have folklore. Folklore is basically kind of told over and over from older generation to new generations, or to new generations. And then you have fairy tale. Fairy tale is basically, made up stories where nothing is actually true. So fairy tale is just like a fantasy that you have here. So it has magic. You had and also sometimes you might kind of confuse this. You might they are actually adapted. So adapted meaning that they are told from one generation to another. That's why you will be able to tell the difference between a fairy tale and a fantasy. But generally speaking, they can be kind of confusing at some point, kind of similar. So you have fable. Fable is basically a story that has been told by old generations, but it has a moral. It has a lesson. No moral, and it has a lesson. Myth is generally about gods. You had Greek gods. So, and I don't want to get too controversial, but generally people from one religion actually believes that other religions' stories are myths, made up. Legend is basically uh, stories that have been told by older generations, and as like as it keeps being told, as those stories as they keep being told from one generation to another, handed down from one generation to another, they kind of they keep getting exaggerated. Even though in the beginning, the first person who told this or the person who shared this, it was just a story that was true. But then the next person kind of exaggerated a bit. And bit by bit, today when you hear it, you think, wow, that cannot be true. So legends, stories, wow, stories that have been kind of exaggerated. These are the five main genres. Nonfiction, we know everything about that. Not made up factual writing. We have fiction, made up, not true, based on the author's imagination. We have drama, they are meant to be played on a stage. We have poetry, focused on using beautiful language and focused on the beauty of a language. So if it's English, and if you read English poems, you'll notice that beautiful language and beautiful maybe figurative language, which we are going to talk about, are used, and you have folklore stories that have been told by older generations to new generations, and they are handed down. You have fairy tale, fable. Fable has moral, has a moral, has a lesson. Fairy tale is like fantasy, has magic, and unbelievable stuff, incredible. I mean, cannot be true at all. You have myths about gods and creation, about the world, and how the world started, how the world was created. You had I mentioned Greek gods. You have Zeus, Norse gods as well. Different. Greek gods are different, by the way. So you have legend stories that have been exaggerated. In the beginning, they might have been true at some point, but now they are so exaggerated that they are unbelievable. So maybe before I go to the next one, if you have any questions about this, please do ask in the chat box. I know I went through this really fast because you don't have to master them. You just need to know that there are these genres and subgenres that whenever you see them or whenever you read a book or whenever you read a passage during your GED test, RLA test, of course, you know what type of what type of text it is, the genre of the text, and then we are going to talk about the story structure in fiction text, which is going to make understanding this a lot easier. This is a test. You are going to read eight different texts, and you are supposed to find their genres, main genre, like you have to mention the main genre is nonfiction and the subgenre is informational writing, or it's informative. And you can say that, okay, the main genre is drama and the subgenre is comedy. So if I go to the next slide, if I go to this one, and if I go to the next slide, okay, and why is this not working? Mm-hmm. Okay. This is very interesting. Anyway, so it's something like this, and then in the next slide, you are going to read this text, and then you are going to write down the main genre of this text. For instance, in this novel, we know it's fiction, right? Brian is struggling, so anyway, and then you choose the subgenre. I'm going to keep this on the screen so that you can remember the main genres and subgenres. If you have any questions, please do let me know. Now go to this code on Mentimeter and let me know when you are done. And your time starts now. Okay, I think that is it. I hope all of you were able to answer the questions. I am going to try to fix this and hope it goes to the next slide. Okay, this should work. Okay, please give me a moment. Okay, this makes it really hard. Okay, I'm going to share another screen then. I hope I can do it as soon as possible. In the meantime, if you have any questions about GED, if you have any questions about this program, please do let me know in the chat box. And this is going to be really sorry about this. And, sometimes Mentimeter does this, and it's not very nice to have it happen. Moment, please. Okay. I hope you can see my screen now. This is good. So if you are not sure about your answers, please do let me know as well. It's fine if you did not understand some of the questions. And we will try to answer all of them, go through all the answers and try to give reasons for why we have chosen those answers and why those answers are the correct ones. So please do let me know if you have any questions. I will address those questions. So the first one is The Hard Way Out by Terry Vaughan. So if you read this in this novel, so the first sentence is a really great giveaway. It says it's novel, so it means it's fiction, right? So, and then if you keep reading it, after losing both of his parents, so you know that in this novel, someone loses their parents, which is realistic. Yes, in a tragic car accident. If it's said, in an alien invasion, that would make this maybe scientific, maybe a science fiction, maybe aliens. Aliens are, by the way, considered to be. If you read stories about aliens invading Earth, those stories are considered to be fiction and in the subgenre of science fiction. So this one, just by reading it, we know that it's fiction and it's realistic fiction, subgenre biography. It's not biography. Biographies are actually based on someone's life. Biographies are true, but this one is fiction, and it's realistic fiction. It means it's made up, but it's a story that could happen to people, or that could happen but did not. The next one, when you read this, Newton's Law by Morton Mallon. So after a live studying the nanotransportation science, Professor Melton stumbles upon a major breakthrough. Melton discovers a way to transport particles across new telescope location. Okay, but Melton soon discovered there is no such thing as free lunch. So he learns that the body age relative to the distance traveled, not just in time. That means it's still putting body age. Can Milton solve this problem before his time is up? So it's the genre, of course. It's, if you just read it, you know it's fiction. It's historical fiction, but also can be considered science fiction and historical fiction. It's not historical fiction, as you can see here. It takes place in 2042. It means it's futuristic. And as we mentioned in the previous slide, futuristic kind of beliefs about scientific improvements are actually considered science fiction, especially that this is about particles and transporting at light speed across fixed distances. So we know that the main genre of this is fiction, and the subgenre for this one is science fiction. Okay, now let's see what you have answered. Fantastic. This one is great. Science fiction. Okay, non-fiction. It's not non-fiction. Non-fiction texts are factual writings. So this is not factual because this is based in the future. It talks about traveling at the speed of light. So this is not realistic, at least right now. This is not factual. So the next one is number 3. So number 3, when you read it, it's Intermediate Math Problems for Students by M. Colwell. Just reading math problems, you know that it's factual. So this workbook in the 6th session, I think it was session 6 or session 7, I told you that all the instructional or all the books that you read, textbooks that you have at schools, and all the books that try to teach you are informational writings, and they are considered nonfiction. So this is nonfiction, talks about realistic world and talks about facts and based on factual writing. Now let's go to the next one to see what you have written. So yes, fiction and nonfiction. Okay, a text cannot be both. A text is either fiction or nonfiction. Even poems. Poems can be based on true events, realistic fiction, but also poems can be, just based on factual writings. You can have poems about political situations, about cruelties of some people, and basically you can have nonfiction poems and you can have fiction poems, but you can't have a poem that is both fiction and nonfiction, meaning both true and untrue. Something is either factual or made up. It's like opinions and versus facts. Okay, let's also explain. Okay, explain is not a subgenre of any kind, but I assume you were talking about instructional. And yes, instructive writings or instructional writings or informational writings are nonfiction. Yeah, it's not folklore because it does not talk about being told by older generation to the new generation. It's nonfiction. It's not fiction. It's nonfiction and it's informational writing, as you can see here. So much genre nonfiction, subgenre informational writing. Well done. Okay, so if a tree falls, adapted by Stan Tano. Okay, so as soon as you read the word adapted, it basically means it's been told, from one generation to another. So it's adapted, so it's folklore. And if you read it, this is the very short story of a buck. The buck was admiring his horns in the water's reflection and feeling bad about his skinny legs. Then a hunter tries to kill him. As the buck tries to escape, his big horns get stuck in some tree branches, but his skinny legs manage to pull him free. The moral is that what is truly valuable is often unappreciated. It has a moral, and it's adapted. What is it? It's folklore, and it's a fable. So the genre for this one is folklore, and the subgenre fable. Okay, let's see what you've written. Realistic fiction, yes, but realistic fictions do not have a lesson, like a lesson mentioned in this story that, okay, you have to appreciate this, you have to not, you have to avoid doing this. So that's why I said, sometimes you can have fictions and folklores kind of mess up, but as soon as you read this word as I said, adapted, it means it's been handed down from older generations. So that makes this folklore and not realistic fiction. Realistic fiction is a subgenre of fiction. Okay, beauty of the language. No, beauty of the language is not a subgenre. So you don't have a subgenre for poems. Poems are basically poems. Yeah. You have either fiction or non-fiction poems, mostly fiction, by the way. So Buck was admiring. Yes, someone has written folklore fable. Yeah, please put a comma. That would make it really great. Folklore, yes. Folklore, yep. But also the subgenre is fable. Now, number 5 is The Tinfoil Key by Rob Burnside. So when young Ian Bradley, accidentally switches suitcases with an intergalactic space explorer, once you read this, you know that, oh, this is science. But because we don't have that kind of technology yet, so this is actually science fiction. And science fiction is a subgenre of fiction. So he ends up going on the trip of a lifetime. Now that he's holding the bag, Ian must deliver it to the light scientists on Gamma Outpost 9 in time. Every life form in the galaxy is unknowingly depending on the success of Ian's efforts. Okay, science fiction, it's subgenre, and main genre is fiction. So let's see what you have written. So the tinfoil key, that's the title. Yep, fiction and science fiction or scientific fiction. Yep, fantastic. Yep, that is true. Yeah. Oh, fiction fantasy. Yes, this could be considered fantasy because of maybe I think this is a made up Gamma output 9 in time. So this I think that is made up, and maybe that's something magical that can be. But it's safer to say that this is science fiction and the subgenre is science fiction and the main genre is fiction. So now number 6. So Seeing More, Being More by Fletch Carpenter. Dr. Fletch gives readers a dose of hard medicine. He believes that most people cause their own problems. Fletch teaches readers to solve problems such as bullying, insecurity, and relationship troubles. He does this with a 3-step strategy: letting go of ego, seeing the real reality, and finding a role. Some readers find Carpenter's ideas to be refreshing, others find them to be offensive. So we did talk about when your writing is written in a way that tries to persuade you, meaning that convince you to think in a certain way, to question your belief, your existing beliefs, or offend your beliefs, then that writing is nonfiction. And as you can see, this is true. So this person talks about this person, this writer talks about Dr. Fletch and about him trying to kind of convince people or persuade people, like self-help books. Those are, maybe this is a self-help book, and this person is trying to teach people how to deal with those issues that you read here. Anyway, so this is nonfiction and this is persuasive writing. Let's see what you have written so far. Okay, so what are the main genre and subgenre of passages read? Seeing more, being more. Okay, seeing more, being more is the title. Fiction, science fiction? No, this is not fiction. Believing thereon. Okay. Yes, non-fiction informational writing. This is also true. This is also true. And science fiction persuasive writing is also true. But mostly, no, someone just read non-fiction. It's fine. You don't have to answer right now, but if you want to, it's up to you. So now number 7. So number 7 is World War II has been hard for Mama Connor. While her husband and 3 sons have been away at war, well, once you read this, you can see away at war, and Mama Connor had to fend for herself. She keeps the house together, raises money, and provides for baby Mabel. The mood in town suddenly darkens when her neighbor Bitsy loses one of her loved ones in battle. At Mama Connor's ladies' club, several tiny ladies of town are on edge. They heard a garbled news reporting announcing that a man from their town was lost in battle. But the man's name went unheard, and the women are left to speculate. This novel ends in a surprising twist. So you're reading this and you feel like, okay, maybe this is about this lady, and maybe it's true. It tells, maybe it's a biography about this Mama Connor. Mama Connor, I think. Mama is mom. Anyway, so and then in the end you read this novel. Once you read that, okay, this is fiction, and this is realistic fiction, and because it's based kind of in the past, but it's about World War II, this makes it historical fiction, meaning that this could have happened, but this is made up. And any resemblance with any real life situation, real life stories, and real incidents during World War II is just coincidence. Let's see what you have written. Okay, now you have written that it's bronze star, bronze star. Okay, it's fiction, realistic fiction, realistic fiction. As I said, yes, it could be, but because realistic fiction kind of focuses on the present, this is a historical fiction. Someone just wrote that. Yes, it's historical fiction. Yeah, well done. At least now I know that you understand what I am explaining. Now let's go to number 8. Rapunzel, adapted by Craig Hooper. Adapted makes it folklore. And once upon a time, a young girl named Rapunzel, I don't know how to pronounce his name. Let's call this girl Rachel. Was running around for her mother, an evil witch kidnaps. Okay, evil witch. Evil witch is magic, isn't it? And that makes it fairy tale. It has magic and it's adapted. So because it's adapted, it's folklore, and because it has magic, it's fairy tale. Let's see what you have written so far. Okay. So fiction fantasy, it's because, as I said before, once you read this like adapted, it means this story has been told by older generation, from one generation to another, and this story has been handed down. That's why the word adapted he means that it's taken, it's kind of handed down. So that makes this folklore. And if you read this and you understand the word witch, then you know that it has magic. And that makes this folklore and fairy tale. Okay, they talk about the history of war. Okay, maybe this is, okay, this is it. Let me share another screen and let's go back to the presentation. This is, okay, I hope that was good. And the next topic is theme. I think we have some questions. I'm going to try to read them. Okay, great. Will the questions be similar like these ones, or it's just a teaching material? Questions are going to be similar to what I, put in the passage that you read, but they are not going to be the same questions. I mean, I would be considered a magician if I were able to understand what they are going to ask you during the test and provide them for you here. Anyway, so the next one is theme. Theme is basically the life lesson of a story. Author's message, and the big picture. Sometimes, one of the mistakes that people make is they kind of mistake the subject of the story with the theme. So you have to understand the, okay, I have to choose pen and then the color, yeah, that was already chosen. So you have to understand that you have a topic, and then the topic or the subject is what the story is about. Is what the story is about. But the theme of the topic, the theme of the text, not the topic, the text is the kind of the hidden, mostly, by the way. They are not stated clearly. So theme is the biggest. The biggest point of the text, maybe I should say a text. So let's say, for instance, I want to talk about, let's say the topic is GED. I'm going to just make up a story, right? That's not a G. Let's say the topic is GED. And maybe let's even make it more specific. So let's say the topic is studying GED. And then I'm going to kind of make up, this realistic fiction, or the subgenre would be fiction, realistic fiction, and the main genre is fiction. Because it's made up, it can be true, but it's not. So it's realistic fiction. I'm just going to say okay, let's talk about studying GED. That's the topic. I'm going to make up a story. Let's say it's Tim. Okay, Tim is unable to finish high school because, some personal difficulties, but Tim really wants to study computer science. I go to university and study computer science. But since Tim does not have a high school diploma, he is unable to apply to any university, and no university accepts him without high school diploma. Fortunately, Jim finds out about GED program and GED diploma, and once he does some research. He finds out that he will be able to take all the 4 tests and pass all of them within 2 years. So, which is not a long time considering how much Jim wants to go to university and study computer science. Okay, Jim starts studying for English first because the English is the most difficult. RLA test is the most difficult test of GED. So Jim starts studying for English, but he does not take the English test first. He just wants to study it because through the English, through studying English, he can actually take social studies test and pass it really easily, very easily. Anyway, so Jim works really hard. He studies 5 hours a day. Tim, why did the name change? Okay, Tim studies really hard, and he studies 5 hours a day, 5 days a week. He does. He researches, goes on the internet, goes to different websites, takes online tests, does practice tests, reads passages, and he takes studying and preparing for GED tests very, very rigorously. And he takes it very seriously anyway. So it goes on like he keeps studying for the different tests. Like after 6 months, he's able to take a social studies test and passes the test. And then after 8 months, he's able to take the English test, passes it, and takes mathematics test and passes that test as well. And then goes on and then takes, in the end, takes the science test and passes that one as well. Okay. So consider this story that I just made up, out of nowhere. Now consider this. What am I trying to tell you? What is the biggest idea that you can think of, after hearing this story? What can this story teach you? Now, that is the theme of this story. Even though I have not spent any time on writing this and thinking properly about this, but even this really messy story and unprepared story has a theme. And if you can understand, and if you know what the theme of this story is, please write it down in the chat box. If you don't, it's fine. Before I say it, if you know what the theme of this story, what is the biggest lesson? What is the biggest lesson of this story that I just told you? Okay, waiting. Okay, let me give you some clues. Okay, consider how Tim was. Tim's situation in the beginning of the story, always a solution for our findings. Fantastic. Okay, yes, great idea. Keep the answers coming. Okay, Tim's situation in the beginning of the story. In the beginning, and then as the story keeps progressing, keeps going, so things that happen, how Tim reacts to different scenarios, how Tim acts when he's faced with this difficulty of not being able to go to university without high school diploma. And then he works really hard. And then in the end, Tim's able to go to university, even though that's not mentioned here, because he has his GED diploma. He can apply to any university. And if those universities are happy with Tim's improvement and Tim's grades, they will accept him. Anyway, as Jasmitha Charles Yes, you are absolutely right. Try to make it more specific. Yes, there is always a solution for our findings. Yes. And if you could maybe use an idiom to say that, you could say hard work pays off, right? So something. So this is the biggest idea, the biggest lesson that you can understand, or that you can learn from this, is hard work pays off. If you believe, you can achieve. Right. Yes, yes. Fantastic. Yeah, great. So that is the theme of this story. Hard work pays off. You can find, yes, there's always a solution for findings. There's always a solution. Every problem, if there is a will, there is a way, right? Hard work pays off. If you believe it, you can achieve it. Yes. If you can dream it, you can do it, right? You know, those things. So that is the theme of this story. I hope you now know what the theme is. And from now on, whenever there are so many answers to one question, look for the right one. Okay, so you're not going to see all of these answers, these really similar answers, like if there is a will, there is a way, and then that's option A, and then option B is hard work pays off. You're not going to see that. If it's if you have this question and this story during the GED RLA test, one option will be, so uh, if you don't believe in yourself, you are going to fail. See, that's not even the point of this story, is it? And then another option is, if there is a will, there is a way. And then you're like, okay, yeah, that is something that we can learn from this story. Tim was in a terrible situation. He wasn't able to apply to any university because he did not have GED, he did not have high school diploma. But when he found out that he can get his high school diploma, not exactly high school diploma, but he can get a high school diploma, high school equivalent diploma, and that's GED. And GED requires you to work really hard, be consistent. Don't take it like a joke. It requires hard work. You have to be consistent. You have to work really hard. You have to ask your questions. That's why I have, since the beginning, I told you, if you have any questions, if there is anything that you want to know about GED, about, of course, this is RLA, about RLA test. But if you have any grammatical questions, please do let me know. Which, fortunately, one person asked through the Mentimeter code, and if we have time, I'm going to go through that question and answer it. Anyway, now you understand the theme. Let's say let's say the story is that someone wants to go to university. Let's say the previous person's name was Tim. This person's name is, let's call it John. I hope no one is named John here. Anyway, John wants to go to university, but just like Tim, he has not been able to go to school and finish high school, and therefore does not have a high school diploma to apply to university. And universities, as I said, as was the case in Tim's, as it was in Tim's case, universities do not accept students who do not have high school diploma. And then John decides to study for GED, but he studies only once a week, like 2 hours, and does not really care about it. He goes out all the time, plays video games. And after 2 years, he is still unable to pass the GED ready test for RLA, science, social studies, and mathematics. but he's really disappointed that he's disappointed as to why he has not been able to get his GED diploma like Tim. Okay, so let's say this is John's story. What do you understand from this one? Does this teach you the same lesson? No, this one tells you that if you don't work hard, you're not going to be able to play hard. Work hard, play hard. Anyway, so if you don't work hard, you're not going to achieve your goals. That's the story. This is the opposite side of that. That's the lesson. This is the opposite of the lesson that we learned, or that we can learn from Tim's story. Anyway, so theme of your text is the biggest idea. Or if you have to kind of sometimes, maybe most of the times, you have to think outside the box. Just don't be stuck in Tim's case. If I ask you what is the theme of this story, don't tell me, okay, in Tim's case. If I ask you what is that, what is the theme of that story? What if the theme of Tim's story getting his GED diploma? Don't tell me that Jim was able to get his GED diploma and apply to universities. That is the main idea of the text. But the theme of the text, the lesson that you can learn from the text, is that hard work pays off. If there is a will, there is a way. You believe it, and of course, you act upon what you believe, you can do it. Just believing it, by the way, does not achieve it. Okay. Now let's read this one. So this one starts with, this is something I'm just going to read, and there is no practice for this one and the next topic, which is inference. Yet, but since you have understood inference, I hope I am able to finish before the time is up. Anyway, so now let's find out the theme of this story and the reason why we think this is the theme. Okay, let's read this together and let's find out what the theme of this story is, what the biggest idea and the biggest lesson. The kind of try to look outside the box. Read the text, but connect it to a lesson that you can learn from this story. Persevere is key to achieve our goals. If not, goals won't be achieved. Yes. Yes, fantastic. Yep, that is the theme of the story that I told you about John not studying for GED and still expecting to pass it and get his diploma. Stupid John, right? Anyway, let's read this text. So after setting his alarm clock for PM instead of AM, Eric woke up late for school. Oh, in his haste, he forgot to pack your lunch or bring lunch money. Eric did not mind much at first because he figured that he could eat some of his friend's food. During lunchtime, Eric explained his situation to people at his lunch table. Friends were sympathetic to his cause, but they had only packed lunch for themselves, not Eric. Katie offered Eric a small bag of carrots. Yuck! I hate carrots. Thanks anyway, Eric said as he declined Katie's offer. Chuck offered Eric his milk, to which Eric responded, "Is that skim milk? Ew! I hate skim milk. Does anyone have any chocolate milk?" Some people at the table did have chocolate milk, but they did not want to give their milk to Eric. To break the silence, Ben offered Eric half of his egg salad sandwich. Again, Eric refused quite rudely. Egg salad is gross. Doesn't anyone have anything good for me? But that was the last offer that Eric would receive that day. Okay, come on. What do you think is the theme of this story? Anyone? I'm just going to give you some clues. Okay, let's highlight them. Let's highlight the clues for this. Okay, here is the same situation. Makes a mistake here, right? And then assumes or thinks that he can eat others' food, but during lunchtime, they were sympathetic to his cause, but they had only packed lunch for themselves, not Eric, right? Now look at this. Now Katie actually offered Eric a small bag of carrots, which is a good thing, right? But he really that offer too. And then he asked, now look at this. So he asked for something that he likes in a situation. Fantastic. Yes, someone has already written a theme. Yes, I appreciate what you get, even if you don't want it. Yes, that is realistic, and that is a lesson that we can learn from this text. Some people at the table did have chocolate milk, but they did not want to give their milk to Eric. Yep. Okay, just because people have something that you like does not mean that they have to provide you what you like. So they can, I know, they don't have to give anything. It's not their job to make up for your mistakes. Especially when people do offer you something, never turn any help. Yes, never turn down any help that's been offered to you. Appreciate it before it's gone. Yes, fantastic. Yes, this is fantastic. And then to break the silence, Ben offered Eric half his egg salad sandwich. You see, there has been a silence. This person keeps being rude, and he even refuses the last offer from Ben, right? And then refuses it very rudely. Anything good for me? Those people who were having those things that they offer him, they had brought those things to themselves. If you don't learn from your mistakes, then they become regrets. Yes, that is great. Yes, but maybe that is maybe yes, maybe that is close, but the closest theme, this one, is that if you maybe like if you write an idiom. An idiom for this one would be, or maybe I'm not going to write down an idiom, I'm just going to write down one of your sentences. Okay, mistakes, appreciate what you get, even if you don't want it. Okay, I'm getting a bit skeptical about this one because sometimes you don't want something because it's bad for you, right? If you are lucky enough to get a chance at something, don't waste it. Okay, yes, that could be it. So, yeah, I have to choose pen. Do not refuse help. Help is a good thing, right? Help is something you want, even if it's not as significant as you as you would like, maybe. As you would like them to be. As you would like it to be. Right? Because to be honest, people don't have to help us at all. I mean, help, right? It's something people actually give to you. It's something that they don't owe you. You have not done anything for them. When they are helping you, or when people help you, understand that they are uh, that they do that, or they want to help you because they really care about you, and you're not in any situations refuse help, especially in Eric's situation. He's not in the he's not in the position to refuse help. It's like a bigger on the street, struggling to eat food, but then someone gives that beggar maybe a chicken burger, and then the beggar is, no, I don't want chicken burger. Do you have beef burger? Bring beef burger, right? No, you ask for help. It's like Eric did. He explained his situation to his friends, or people sitting at the lunch table that he was where he was sitting. But then he kept refusing help. So maybe another lesson that we can learn from this is that kind of maybe I should write this idiom that I can think of. Have you heard about this idiom? Beggars can't be choosers. Maybe I should change the color. Not okay. Beggars can't be choosers. Right? I mean, if you are in a situation like Eric's and you refuse the helps that you get because they are not as significant as I'm sure even if Eric actually had lunch, he would not have exactly what he wanted, right? And as you can see in here, we have been asked to provide reason, and we can use the highlighter again to give reason for this. Okay, so this can't be choosers, don't refuse help when you need it, of course. So you ask for help, right? You have explained your situation to the people there, but then, and you had good friends, they were sympathetic about your cause, refused the help anyway. We don't have time to go through this. It's fine. I'm going to talk about this again. And this is inference. These are things that will be added to the Notion glossary passages and also some resources to practice your grammar. There are really great websites where you can go and practice your grammar. And if you have any questions, can let me know. That would be it. If you have any questions, go there. And if there is no question, then this is the end of session 8. And thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much to our facilitator for today's informative session. We hope everyone enjoyed the session as well. And also thank you very much to those who has submitted their trivia through our social media platforms. And now, do you want to develop more brilliant ideas with a platform like this? It's easy as ABC. You can simply go to our website at www.atamerica.or.id, select create an event, and go to collaborate with us. A given proposals will be reviewed and your event might be featured here soon. You can also subscribe to our newsletter if you find yourself enjoying this event so you can stay updated with our upcoming events as well. Follow us on our social media. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at AT America for interesting contents, giveaways, and so much more. Also, click the like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. With that, it is time to say farewell. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Hasna. See you on the next At America event. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, and see you next week. See you Saturday.